There are ideas that persist like a faint melody beneath the louder song of history, ideas not wholly erased, only buried, obscured by centuries of translation, doctrine, and power. Among these is the quiet and provocative notion that reincarnation, so often associated with Eastern religions, once found a place, if not in the center of Christian theology, then in its twilight periphery, nestled in the shadows of early thought. It is an idea that seems to contradict the clarity of dogma, and yet, like a forgotten stone in a cathedral wall, it endures, waiting to be seen again. Was reincarnation ever truly a part of Christian belief? Or are these whispers mere echoes from philosophies that brushed against early Christian minds, only to be cast out as the faith solidified into an empire? The question itself is dangerous, unsettling the firm ground upon which modern orthodoxy rests. But history is rarely a straight path, and belief, like a river, often flows underground before it emerges again in unexpected places. In the earliest centuries of Christianity, the boundaries between belief systems were fluid, more like tides than walls. The Desert Fathers and the Gnostic mystics, the Hellenistic Jews and the Alexandrian philosophers, all moved within a world where the soul's journey through multiple lifetimes was not foreign, not heretical, but part of a larger cosmological framework. The idea that the soul might return again and again, learning through suffering and grace, was neither bizarre nor blasphemous. It was, to some, the very architecture of divine justice. Origen of Alexandria, one of the most brilliant and controversial theologians of the 3rd century, stands at the heart of this forgotten current. A man of profound intellect and mystical intensity, Origen dared to ask questions most would fear to voice. He spoke of the pre-existence of souls, suggesting that each soul was created before the body, that its earthly existence was the result of prior choices, and that the soul's destiny was to return to God through cycles of purification. Though he never used the word reincarnation in its later sense. His cosmology implied a vision of spiritual evolution across more than one lifetime. For Origen, the soul fell not by accident but by will, descending from a primordial unity into the material world. Earth was not the beginning, but a chapter, a chance to awaken, to return. And though the Church would later condemn some of his teachings at the Fifth Ecumenical Council in 553 CE, the fact remains that his writings were copied, preserved, and even revered for centuries. His vision, though ultimately deemed dangerous, was never entirely extinguished. There are other threads. In the apocryphal and Gnostic texts, particularly those unearthed at Nag Hammadi in 1945, we find references to the soul's return, to spiritual amnesia and gradual ascent. In the Pistis Sophia, a complex and mystical gospel attributed to the early Christian Gnostics, Jesus speaks of souls that must pass through many lives, paying karmic debts, before they can rise into the light. These texts, suppressed and excluded from the canon, offer an alternative Christianity, one where salvation is not a single moment of faith, but a long unfolding across eons. Even in the canonical Gospels, some cryptic passages seem to glow with ambiguity. When Jesus speaks of John the Baptist as the return of Elijah, not metaphorically but as fulfillment of prophecy, he is gesturing toward a mystery the early listeners would have understood without alarm. If you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who was to come, he says in Matthew 11 verse 14. This is not a reincarnation as modern minds might imagine it, but it suggests a spiritual continuity, a returning essence, a role that transcends linear time, and yet, over time, these ideas faded. Or were made to fade. As Christianity aligned itself with imperial power, it sought clarity, hierarchy, and control. The soul's journey became a single path: birth, sin, redemption or damnation. There was no space for cycles, no tolerance for a view of God that operated through repetition and refinement. Salvation was to be achieved within a single lifetime, obedience was urgent, and judgment final. But ideas, once planted, rarely die. In the Middle Ages, quiet voices continued the old conversations. Cathars and Albigensians in the south of France spoke of the soul's many lives. They were branded heretics and hunted. Yet their beliefs carried whispers of an older, more expansive Christianity, one in which the soul's journey was not limited to the brief span of years between cradle and grave. Even today, some Christian mystics and visionaries speak of past life memories, of a spiritual architecture that stretches beyond the limits imposed by official theology. They are often dismissed or ignored, yet they persist. Perhaps the reason reincarnation continues to surface, again and again, within Christian thought, is because it answers questions that haunt the human heart. Why are we born into such unequal conditions? Why do some suffer from birth, while others move through life untouched by hardship? Why does one child die young and another live to see great age? The doctrine of a single life, followed by eternal judgment, offers only stark answers. Reincarnation, on the other hand, suggests a justice not of punishment, but of healing. To believe in reincarnation within a Christian framework is not necessarily to reject Christ, but to see him as a soul who, having completed the journey, returned to guide others. It is to imagine the resurrection not only as an end but as a promise, that what dies may rise again, and what falls may climb. The cross becomes not only a sacrifice, but a bridge between lifetimes, a symbol of the soul's long pilgrimage through death toward light. In the silent spaces of churches, beneath the stained glass and solemn hymns, one might feel the trace of older truths. Perhaps it is not heresy to ask whether the soul returns. Perhaps it is memory. The early church, in its wild, luminous infancy, knew more than we remember. And somewhere, in the architecture of forgotten gospels, in the silence between the lines of scripture, the soul's hidden journey waits to be rediscovered.